Hey friends, and welcome back to the series of What Do You Do? Now if you guys are new here, this series is going to be all about the full interviews that I've had with all the job roles that I'm covering. So if you haven't seen it already, make sure you go back and check out the summary videos before checking out this whole full interview. But if you guys have already seen it, then make sure you just keep watching. I hope you guys enjoy.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Ben, and today we're going to be diving into one of the hot roles in the market at the moment, which is a front-end developer. Now, look, we've got a really good friend of mine on the call at the moment, who was also a former colleague when I was at IBM. Jad, did you want to give a quick introduction into, what your role is like as a front-end developer and, in terms of where you are working at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Really happy to be talking with you today. So I am a software developer and consultant at PwC, and I'm part of the experience consulting firm, part of that. And that's where they combine business, design and consulting and tech to help improve customer experiences. And I've been in this role for around 6 months now. And before then, as you said, I was with IBM. So I was with IBM Consulting for 2.5 years, which is where I met yourself as part of the graduate program. So it's been great so far. I've learned a lot. I've been working on, in different industries and on different clients, and I've, improved my skills since then. So yeah, happy to be here chatting to you about that.
That's awesome. And look, like it feels like it's been ages ago since we've met. It feels like it's been long.
It's been since 2019, since the assessment day. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I guess for everyone watching, right? So wanted to talk about your background. So in terms of education wise, what did you study? Because a lot of times, like for myself and if people who have watched the previous videos, I didn't have a tech background. I didn't study IT or anything, but I'm currently working in tech and IT, right? So yeah, I guess sort of what's your background and how you're studying, and was that actually even relevant to what you're doing right now?
Well, actually, yeah, I'm kind of the same thing. Like I didn't study IT before uni. Like I had no tech background at all. So I studied a double degree at UTS. I studied a Bachelor of Business and a Bachelor of Science in IT. And yes, it did really help me, get to where I am now. As I said, I had no tech background. Tech, that wasn't really even my top choice at uni in the first place, right? So like I only chose it because my ATAR wasn't, that great to get directly into business. So thankfully, UTS was offering a double degree at a lower ATAR mark, which includes IT inside. So I'm like, why not? And it, turns out that I actually, enjoyed working in the IT space a lot more. And yeah, that was kind of my first taste. So in uni, I studied Java, where we create a lot of web applications, mobile applications. We worked through C++, HTML, CSS, data structures and algorithms. So yeah, that was kind of like my first taste into it. But however, having said that, I want to make it clear that having a formal education is not required. It's not important to get into the role that I'm in now. There's heaps of free and paid courses out there. It's very much possible for someone without a formal education to be just as better, just as good or even better than someone with a formal education. But having said that, being at uni is great because you're paired with like-minded students. You can share resources, you can motivate each other. Yeah, having that motivation is very key to getting started, I think.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, right? Like I think, and with a lot of other people, like it's so different nowadays, especially with how people are hiring. So even companies, right? Like they're not really looking for a university degree anymore, right? But back then it was.
Exactly.
And it's more now like, okay, what's your experience? What's your passion? And what have you been doing outside? Like, so if you're able to show that, show your interest and go, hey, like, look, I've been creating all these projects on my own time to show that experience. That's probably like way more valuable nowadays, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because nowadays, in terms of coding and programming, the experience is worth a lot more than your education, right? It's if you've done something, then that's much more valuable to a client than your theory behind. It's still important, like obviously it's still important, but in the coding industry, experience is key.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I guess when it comes to it, like you were saying, coding, right? So I guess as people watch this and they want to know, okay, front-end developer, I know I want to be like coding all day, right? But that could also be a misconception, right? So I want to go over exactly what you do in a day, right? So in terms of what does Jad do in a day of a front-end developer, software developer, right? Like is it actually just sitting there all day doing coding, or do you actually go in a lot of meetings and have breaks to even chat with others to learn as well?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. So the thing is that I'm a software developer, but I'm also a consultant. So, having said that, is that every engagement is not the same. So every role is different, every client, every industry, your team is different as well. Your managers, your workload is not the same. So that all varies on, from time to time. But from, I guess, an overall perspective, I guess we are less meetings based. Like obviously we do attend all those, stand-ups and retrospectives and showcases and all of that. But, in terms of our core-to-core day-to-day, things that we do, it's less of a meetings-based role and more of a hands-on, practical, getting your hands dirty with the code and all of that. And I think that's also kind of the same with your hours as well. Like I think we work regular nine to five, but obviously that's also flexible, right? Especially now that we're in this COVID space. We are, more and more flexible. Companies are more and more flexible. So obviously, if there's certain strict deadlines or scope creep or anything that I guess that's unexpected, obviously you would be, encouraged to work longer hours to make up for that. But I guess that's normal in any workspace.
You've touched on certain concepts, right, that maybe not everyone's familiar with. So unless they're in the tech industry and they understand like agile and the way enterprise design thinking, ways of working, right? Like know what a sprint, stand-up, retro, showcase, and all those playbacks are. But we can go over all that in another sort of video, because it's a whole other topic, right?
It is, yeah.
But yeah, like it makes sense. Like you attend your meetings that you just need to do. But then, each engagement may be different. You may need to vary your hours in terms of how much you have to work. At the end of the day, it's quite similar. You're still building something for a client, right? At the end of the day, and you're developing something for it. It's just that as a consultant, you get to meet with them, you get to talk with them, and all that, right?
Yeah,
so it's a bit extra.
It's and we obviously we do engage with the client as well. Some cases you may be directly integrated with the client. So I guess my current engagement is with an insurance company, and I'm directly integrated with the client. So there's a lot of it's client facing for me at the moment because I am engaging with them on a day-to-day. But for example, on my previous engagement, I was working on a PwC team, and I guess there was less interaction with me because there were other team members who were dealing with the client directly. So every project is a little bit different in terms of the amount of client engagement or the client interaction that you have to do. So 100%.
Exactly. And I hate to say this, but because every consultant says it, but we always go, it depends, right? But it actually does. Like it depends on each engagement.
It depends, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Like your day-to-day changes, right? Like, so I guess that's the best part about being a consultant, right? Like if you don't want your repetitive sort of work style and work life, you become a consultant, right? That's one step.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the consultant industry is kind of like an incubator for your skills, right? It's like, it's like the perfect environment to grow and improve your skills, because there's a lot of change involved, a lot of clients, a lot of different skills that you would learn. So yeah, 100%. It's a great place to be, for learning.
It seems like it's an awesome sort of role and an awesome sort of job to be in, and it, like, honestly, we may have touched on this a bit earlier in terms of you don't need a university degree these days. It's not there's less importance on it. It's more importance on value in terms of being able to show your experience, right? Say I am someone who's completely, we'll put two scenarios. I'll toss two scenarios. I'm a fresh graduate coming out of university, and I want to become a front-end developer, right? So what sort of tips would you give to them? And then maybe we'll flip it on a bit, going, I have 1 or 2 years experience already. And I'm trying to break into becoming a developer. Like, what sort of advice or tips would you give to them?
Yeah. Okay. So look, in terms of tips, I would say, look, the first thing I would advise, right, is to understand exactly why you want to get into the space, right? So like, ask yourself why, because I think that's the most important thing. What's motivating you to get into coding, to get into this particular role? Do you have a passion for it, or is it because your parents are saying you should do it? You know what I mean? And I think like, what I always try to follow is this famous quote. Not exactly sure by who, but it's kind of like, if you enjoy the job that you're doing, then you never have to work a day in your life. So first tip is to make sure that you're in it for the good reasons. Make sure that you're enjoying what you're doing first, because I think, if we look at the age of retirement, 30-40 years, you have to make sure that you're in the space that I guess you think that you would enjoy doing in that time. So that's my first tip to, I guess, someone who is starting out, who's thinking of moving into the space. I guess if you've got a couple of years experience, I would say is that, I've kind of touched on this before, but there's so much out there. There's so much free content, especially free, that people can just go, like, they can go on YouTube. There's like hours and hours of, free stuff on there. So, if you want to get a taste into the life of a coder, it's always worth it to see what's out there, experience that for yourself. Even before you commit to any kind of role. And I guess the last tip I would give is to be prepared for a lot of learning, right? Because the tech industry is always changing. There's new frameworks, new guidelines that always, that's always released every single year. We're moving into like a machine learning, AI driven world anyway, web 3.0. So I think it's really important to that you have to be prepared to learn all the time, to keep up. Otherwise your skills may be outdated. So yeah, those are the 3 tips that I would give to anyone who is looking to get into the space.
Yeah, and it seems like it's awesome in the sense that it could apply to anything. Right? Like, it doesn't have to apply to front-end development. Like the exact quote,
exactly.
You don't have to work another day in your life because it's what you enjoy. It's your hobby, right? Like, that's standard with it, deciding your whole career. But you make a great point. Like, there's so much free resources out there that you can actually understand what it actually is like to be a developer, right? Before you even get into it.
Exactly.
So it's a good way
100%.
to taste it. I guess the side benefit of that is that you can use what you've just done to demonstrate to people in an interview to go, hey, I've done this. And it's a great way to get into it as well. And then you need that curiosity as everything, right? Like, you always have to be ready to learn. Tech is changing every single day, right? Like, it's a really fast-paced environment. Yeah, it's a fast-paced environment. You need to be on top of things, and you need to be able to demonstrate that, right? Like, I'm always trying to learn the latest things. So I think if you're able to demonstrate those sort of things, skill sets and assets that you have, then you'll likely be able to get into this sort of role, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
And then we move on to the part where, I I kind of understand what this role entails now. I've got the ideas in terms of what I have to do when I want to get into it. Okay, but then there's always this other part, right? Like it always sounds so good in a job description. It might not be very realistic. And there may be misconceptions around the role, right? Like, so like one of the things I pointed out was, if I'm a developer, am I just sitting in front of a computer all day and just like coding all day, right? Like that could be a misconception, right? Like, yeah, exactly. Are there those out there that you could probably clarify for everyone?
Yeah. So yeah, just to touch on that point, right? It's, you do get your hands dirty a lot, but there's a lot of meetings involved. There's a lot of trying to understand technical concepts, but also try to explain technical concepts to non-technical people, engaging with the client. There's a lot that goes around trying to understand exactly what you have to do, right? Because no one knows exactly how to do things you're going to straight away. Like you need to talk, chat with your team. There's also a lot of research involved as well, making sure that you've done the right thing and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of, I guess, misconceptions, I've found that a lot of job descriptions they need a formal education, and that's this is something that I always that I've touched on as well, is that they need a bachelor's or a master's in IT, and as I said before, it's not really the case. It's not really that important, and which is why we are seeing companies like Tesla, right, that change their policies to no longer require a uni degree. So yeah, that would be my first kind of thing. Second one is that, right, it's the speed, I guess, is not important. The speed in which you code, or I guess the efficiency in terms of how many lines of code that you write, that's not important at all.
Like
right?
as a KPI.
Yeah, it's not, absolutely not, because if you're fast, then you're more likely to introduce bugs, firstly. And if you are trying to, I guess, condense a big block into like one line, right, it's really hard for people to understand, very hard for people to read and know exactly what's happening. So I would say, if you're coding, always code with the expectation that someone will see what you are doing in the future. So always code with that kind of mentality in mind, and make sure that it's always easy to read, because if it's a small, like if someone is coming and trying to fix a certain bug, right, and if there's a lot of complexity, that something that may take half an hour may now take a couple of hours. So very important. And the last part is that this is something that's not really mentioned in a lot of job descriptions, but interpersonal skills, communication skills, really important. It's not really mentioned, but it's really important to be able to explain technical concepts to non-technical people. And I think that's really important, right? Because if you understand something, you need more than just that. So you don't have to be a public speaker, but just having what I mean. So just knowing how to explain things to the client as well. That's also important as well.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point, like which goes throughout all of them, right? So it seems like a common trend in all of them is being able to communicate your idea. So you're saying, because I know people have the misconception, right? Like I'm a developer and I want to be a developer because I want to be left alone and I just want to do my thing and code, right? Like sometimes that's the reason. Yeah, sometimes that's the reason why people want to get in, and it's not, right? Like, even on job descriptions, they stress so much about your technical skills, but they never stress too much about, by the way, guys, you need to know how to communicate your ideas to your teammates and everything else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like succession planning as well. You create something, but you have to be able to transfer that skills and knowledge to the next person. If you decide to leave, you go on, like you leave the company or you go on actual annual leave or some holiday, right? Someone has to come in and take over, right? So there has to be that knowledge transfer. So if your code is only specific to you and that you only understand it, it's not going to work very well. You really have to learn how to work in a team, right?
Exactly. Which is also why when you're coding as well, you should always write, like explain it. Like if it's like, especially if it's a very complicated block of code, always explain it, like write comments inside, just so the next person can know exactly what's happening. That's also really important as well.
Yeah, being able to get that sort of synergy with your teammates as well is probably pretty critical, right? So they know the way and the style that you code. That makes it so much easier for the next person, right?
100%, exactly. And that's, something that I experienced firsthand as well. Like, it always helps, if you are able to read someone else's, stuff. And so, you appreciate when people make it easier to read, and they kind of, explain exactly what's happening, so I experienced that as well, like a lot in my role.
I'm not technical at all. I know a bit, so it definitely helps me.
Exactly. There we go.
I guess one final question is that, look, I know that people sort of want to future-proof themselves, right? So before they get into a role or a job, right, a lot of people are like, oh, you know what? Like, for example, if I wanted to be a doctor in the future, I know that like being a doctor is going to stay around for however long, right? It's going to stay around forever because we always need help and in the medicine industry, right? Say in the tech industry, it changes really quickly, right? So, people think, oh, would that role still be relevant or even exist in 5-10 years time, right? Like it's definitely a consideration we have. Look, I personally have a personal opinion that developers will always stay around, and it's a very hot role right now, especially with the whole metaverse coming out and Bitcoin mining and all that. Look, from your point of view, instead of it being relevant in 5 to 10 years, how do you think your role may change, if it will, or will it actually just stay the same?
Yeah, look, I agree with you 100%, right? The role that I'm in, it's going to be here for a while. Like it's one of the most in demand jobs now. And I think it will grow and grow, in years to come. So if anyone, I guess, is looking to change what they're doing, keep the tech industry in mind. But yeah, like I just wanted to also touch upon, that every company is now becoming its own tech company, right? So like they need people to develop their own stuff, right? They need people with expertise in machine learning, whatever it is, that they need people to be able to deploy those applications onto the cloud. All right. So, you can kind of see that, every company will need these skills. So, for sure, it's something that will stick around. Now, in terms of what will change, now, obviously, because tech is always changing, the day-to-day stuff, like what tools and what tech that we use will change a lot, right? And I think, that's important to make clear, especially because we are seeing, a lot of machine learning, or like automation that's kind of replacing a lot of the repetitive tasks that we're doing now. So I guess we will move into more efficient, types of work. But yeah, like as you said, we are moving into the metaverse. There's a lot of
unknowns, right?
3.0 and blockchain. So I think it's an interesting time now. Like I think it's a fertile ground for experimentation and innovation as well. Like there's so many people in the NFT space now. Like it's really interesting to see. And I think where we switch from the Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, there's going to be a lot of change in terms of what our role is all about, what we do. Like I'm thinking about, how, social media will change, like on the blockchain, like stuff like that. So I think, really, really interesting times ahead, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like it's not the your title might not may change all these things, but like your base foundational skills won't change, right? Like you still need that curiosity. You always need to be able to be ahead of things and be willing to learn, right? Like when you learn the new technologies and be ahead of it. So your skills are almost transferable. I guess I want to end off with one more thing, which was, say if I know that being a developer is definitely hot and in demand right now, right? So there's all these companies demanding for it, and there's not enough supply. So for example, I'm a business guy. I have zero tech experience, right? Or maybe I have minimal tech experience.
You do have some tech experience.
I have some tech experience. How does one go from not knowing anything at all to get into this role, right? Like, so maybe taking the online courses is one step, but how else would you get into it? Because I reckon that's probably a big question on everyone's mind, right? Like, damn, this is hot and in demand. I assume it pays well as well, which plays a part, and it's going to be relevant. So if I just do online courses, is that enough, like, for me to be able to get into this role?
Well, look, I think, as you said before, the determination and the motivation, the curiosity, I think if you have that, then everything else would follow, right? So like if you are motivated to get into the space, right, naturally you'll be watching videos online, right? Like it's something that will be there, like in your spare time. But yeah, 100%, like obviously it does depend on how well, or like how you learn, like if you like watching or actually doing things. But I would say if you're looking to get into the role, always having a practical, kind of like a side project, that really helps, right? Because you can improve your skills, but also not have, I guess, the stress and the expectations for a certain quality of work, right? So I think, if you wanted to get into the space, there's, as we said, there's a lot of free stuff out there, that you can use. But also, in a way, even paying for your courses, that may be enough motivation to actually learn, because you've actually paid for it, rather than it just being there.
It's a great motivator.
Yeah, exactly. Because so, but yeah, like 100%, if you have an idea, try to create some kind of side project thing, because that really helps in terms of improving your skills, because you can work on the full stack. You can work on the back end, front end, then you can work on trying to deploy that application onto the cloud, and then you can kind of broaden your skills, rather than, I guess, like in the workplace, right? You may be specialized into one field, or your role may be doing one thing, but if you do your own thing, you can kind of build your skills as well.
I guess I love how you go, you need to understand your motivation, right? Because if it's just for money, you're most likely going to be taking a step back into a different role. So it's not you're not going to get paid as well. So you got to be willing to accept that, right? So if it's not, you got to understand it. You got to focus, and motivation can't be just for money, right? Like you have to be actually be pure interest. You actually enjoy doing it, because you're most likely going to be taking a step back if you weren't in that industry already, or in that developer sort of experience.
Because it's, like it's not an easy space. Like it's really hard, right? So if money is what is motivating you, then I guess it's really hard, I guess, to continue, I guess, for long periods of time. Like you may enjoy it for the short term, but it's like, I guess it's not
sustainable.
It's not practical. It's not sustainable for sure.
I realized something as well, and we probably should have covered this at the start. You talked about front-end development, full stack, back end, right? Like, so I guess for everyone out there, right? What is front-end development, right? Or what is it being like a front-end developer? What are you actually doing?
So my role as a software developer, so like, each person, I guess, they have their certain inclination towards the back end or the front end. So what front-end development is just about building the UI for any type of website or application. So it's basically what the user sees, and what they interact with as well. And typically, these applications will be created using tools like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But one, I guess, a popular framework is React, and I guess that makes it a lot easier to create single page applications, to create interactive web pages as well. So I really enjoy doing that. And in terms of the backend as well, right? I guess a popular tool is Node.js as well. And because both React and Node, they both run using JavaScript, right? I guess they both work well, because they both can also be deployed under the same JavaScript runtime as well. So
I touched on a video of UI design, right, or UX UI design. So I'm assuming they both come hand in hand, right? Someone's designing the way it looks, and you're actually making it come to life, right? Like you're actually building it and making it so that the user can actually see it, right? So we talked about wireframing and stuff, right? So you probably work with UI and UX developers
Exactly. Yeah,
a
we
lot,
do.
right? And that's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
why
for
you
sure.
need that communication skills, as you were mentioning earlier. You
Exactly.
don't only just
Exactly.
talk to developers here. You're talking to designers. You're talking to business people. It's very different, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you would have to try to understand the requirements, not directly from the client, but, from your own team as well. Because, obviously you would have people, BAs, or, other type of consultants in your team that's engaging with the client directly. So you would kind of have to understand exactly what the client is asking for in a technical perspective, like in terms of technical feasibility as well, like making sure that whatever the client is proposing is something that we can do. Like, it's not something that requires weeks and weeks of work to implement that one thing. So, 100%, that's always important as well.
For as a final comment, do you have anything that you want to say in terms of your role? Someone wants to get into it. Is there any sort of last comments that you want to make for everyone who's watching?
Not really. I think what's important is to just do what you enjoy doing. Like, just go with what your passion is. I think that's the most important thing, because like nowadays, we're kind of, there's the great resignation happening now, right? Where people are, I guess, moving out of jobs that they enjoy, that they don't enjoy, and moving into, I guess, more impactful work. So I think it's not worth doing something that you don't enjoy. Do something that you enjoy, because I guess that will improve your mental health as well, which is important, and I guess will put you in a better place.
Yeah, definitely sounds like you enjoy your job.
I do enjoy it a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, for everyone watching, if you guys have any comments that you want to, or any questions that you want to ask Jad here, make sure you comment down below. Make sure you like the video. We're going to come out with weekly content in terms of which sort of roles that you may be interested in. So if you guys have those sort of comments as well, or any roles that you're interested in, make sure you comment down below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your time, Jad. It's been a pleasure talking to you and meeting up with you again. And we'll talk in 5 to 10 years time and see if what's changed with your role.
All good. No, look, happy to have this chat. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks, Jad.